We're very excited for this session. The agenda that Jason and I have in place for you today is that this year has been quite monumental for us here in UAE. The federal decree law was out. We also saw a lot of our customers requesting us, more requests on how they can comply with GRI, and ISSB has suddenly become an area of interest. Companies that are listed on DFM want compliance with that. ADX listed with that. So what we thought is that okay, it seems like that there are a lot of these ESG related acronyms out there. So Jason and I wanted to put this together to bring everything together. And as we wrap up the year, as we put that final full stop on our ESG reports, we just wanted to give you a checklist of a few things that you can make sure that you cover so that nothing gets missed out. Also, Jason was joking earlier that this is actually one of our most successful webinars. We had about 250 plus registrations for it, but given the rain, I believe some folks have left office. I think rains in Dubai can get a little scary. So I really hope that does not negatively impact our webinar turnout. But nevertheless, we can begin. Do Jason's here?
Yes. Hi, Arushi. Thank you
Amazing.
so much
Hi,
for that.
Jason.
Hi. Good evening to everyone who's present. And again, I hope that everyone has safely reached their homes. The train's just getting started. I think it's forecasted for tomorrow as well, the brunt of it. But yeah, super excited to be here and really wrap this year round and sort of discuss with people in the similar industry we operate in and understand what their views are and what their perhaps vision is for their organizations individually. So what we can do from our side is to quickly give you an update and we'll get started. Thanks to Arushi. And just to give you a quick introduction onto the organization itself, my company, HLB HAMT, it is part of the HLB International Network, which is set up in 1969. It's present in 155 countries with an employee count of over 51,000 people across the globe. So HLB HAMT is the UAE division, which has been set up since 99. Again, we are present in all these 7 Emirates. We've got over 400 employees, 16 partners and directors. We are ranked fifth in UAE by the International Accounting Bulletin. We are also ranked eighth globally as per the same body. So we have set up this ESG division under the guidance of our CEO, Mr. Vijay Anand, and our head of ESG, Mr. Vinod Nambiar, both of whom are present with us today. Again, under their guidance, we have set up the ESG division to handle the advisory bit, but it is such a broad mandate that we cannot deliver everything under one roof. So we have very strategically partnered with Oren to support us with this whole ESG data management bit because ESG is nothing but the consolidation and management of credible ESG data. So again, Oren and Arushi himself are supporting us with that, providing auditable data management for all the advisory support we provide to organizations here in UAE. So I think, yeah, we can get started on that note with the very to the point deck that we have prepared for our audience here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jason. And folks, any questions that you have, feel free to put them in the chat. We, of course, we will have 10 to 15 minutes towards the end of this webinar to go through all of your questions. But however, if you have a question on the slide that we are presenting, please put it in so that whoever is speaking, if it's me or Jason, we can pick it up and answer it on the spot for you. Right. That being said, Jason, could you take us to the next slide? Perfect. Thank you. So first thing, we'd like to summarize the current state of ESG reporting in the UAE. So As Oren and as HLB HAMT individually, today we have customers across multiple geographies, multiple countries, right? And UAE, what I would say is kind of going through a transformation. A lot has happened in 2025, but beyond that, even the mindset of organizations in the country has changed dramatically. Even if you look at the quality of sustainability reports and, of course, the sheer quantity of sustainability reports, both have increased dramatically. Until last year or the year before that, you only had large banks or large organizations within the country doing this reporting, but that is definitely changing. Even by the sheer volume of clients reaching out to us, is quite it's quite incredible, right? You also have like small companies. It's not only the large companies, even lots of small companies are today looking at ESG reporting of all sorts. And companies, even from a mindset perspective, are shifting from a very narrative-led disclosure, right, to actually looking at 100% GRI compliant report. They're also looking at, okay, hey, while I am on my GRI journey, are there any elements of ISSB S1 or S2 that I can include today? Companies are asking us questions about climate risk. How does it work? How can it be inculcated? Some of these things are driven by law, which is for the banking and insurance sectors, but it isn't limited to that. Lots of other organizations, apart from these sectors, are also looking at solutions and good solutions when it comes to climate risk, high quality reporting, high quality data. In addition to that, what we also see is that companies are expanding their sustainability teams as well. Until last year, there was one lone wolf within the organization who would handle all of this. Companies are now also hiring more on their sustainability team. I think something that I see from Jason's experience as well, assurance has become extremely, extremely important. Companies do realize that creation and collection and creation of this report is just one thing, but ensuring that you have auditable data and that assurance report has become increasingly important. Another phenomenon that we noticed during this year is CDP, EcoVadis, even these rating agencies, companies have started applying to. So that was extremely interesting for both of us. Could you take us to the next slide, Jason? Perfect. Now on the demand side of things, what kind of stakeholders, what kind of organizations are driving this entire integration of ESG across other organizations, right? One thing that we see tremendously is customers. Today, Dubai Airports has mandated all its suppliers, I'm sorry, to have certain ESG ratings in place. Same is true for large organizations like Saudi Aramco, AD Ports, ADNOC, ENOC, right? All of these large organizations are mandating ESG disclosures from their existing suppliers or any other new suppliers that they bring on. So ESG due diligence has become extremely important. And that is quite prevalent in any kind of procurement or tender related evaluations. Even when it comes to financing and refinancing discussions, banks today have definitely started to look at certain ESG considerations when giving out loans as well. Another aspect that we see clients get interested in is the ICV, in country value. Sustainability also has, while a small percentage, but still a very important contribution to help companies increase their ICV value as a whole. So for that, Maze, I'm just responding to your question. Yes, this session is being recorded. Rasul will send across an email to everyone after this session. Yeah. So even on the ICV front, we see companies taking up ESG or sustainability seriously to then further increase their score, right? That being said, we've not mentioned regulator here, but that goes without saying. With the federal decree law coming about, with the central bank's disclosure requirements, climate risk assessment requirements, ESG is almost everywhere. Next slide, please. Here is a snapshot of certain existing UAE regulations. The one which is very new this financial year and something that I've already been talking about is the Federal Decree Law number 11. This is mandatory GHG emissions reporting, which today just focuses on scope 1 and scope 2, and will perhaps eventually also include scope 3 emissions. And this is applicable to all companies, big or small, mainland, free zone, across all different regions. This is a mandatory law. So any company that is registered in UAE, has a license, has to definitely do this. If you or your organization have 2 licenses or 3 licenses, you will have to create a separate GHG emissions report for scope 1 and scope 2 across all of those entities. In addition to that, um, you have to mandatorily also have an assurance report ready, right? And you have to submit it on the portal. The digital portal where this data has to be submitted is, however, not ready yet, right? But of course, you stay in touch with us, and as soon as that's out, Jason and I will be the first people to be talking about it and informing our clients and our partners, which is you. Then, in addition to that, you have Cabinet Resolution number 67. This is a law which is applicable to the high emitting companies, high emitting industries only. Then, of course, ADX and DFM both. This is Abu Dhabi Exchange and Dubai Financials Market. Both these entities have had an ESG disclosure guidance, and this has been out for, I would guess, about 2.5 years now. And today, if you are doing a GRI report, you do end up covering most of the requirements of ADX and DFM, right? But what certain companies are doing is, towards the end of their sustainability report, they tend to have an index where they categorically, specifically mention the different data points required by ADX or DFM, whichever is relevant to them, or wherever they are listed in the index of their sustainability report. And last but not the least, and this is a big guy. This is the Central Bank UAE's climate risk regulation. This is applicable only to the banks and insurance companies. However, it is very, very, very exhaustive. There are requirements when it comes to ESG integration from a governance perspective, from a strategy perspective, at a policy level. Climate risk, a key focus on climate risk is also something that we've seen the central bank requiring, even mandating the banks and insurance companies to have, and these organizations have to fill out, have responses completed against all the principles laid out and submit to the central bank. I believe we have a couple questions in the chat as well. So, Arun, for you, what is scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3? That's a whole different session, right? But I'll very quickly touch upon this. Scope 1 is for an organization, any kind of fuel that they consume for running their operations, right? If you're a services company, in case you have DG sets, diesel is something that you're consuming. But if you're a manufacturing company, of course, there's a ton of fossil fuels, from coal to natural gas to diesel, that you're using in your operations. Scope 2 is electricity that probably that you're purchasing from Diva. And scope 3 is almost everything else. It's emissions from your products that you're purchasing, the services you are purchasing, emissions from transporting those products or services from your supplier to your doorstep, and taking it from your doorstep to your customers, and emissions happening at your customers' end as well, right? And everything in between. There are 15 different categories. It's a lot for me to cover right now, but happy to do a one-on-one session after this to take you further into this. What is the linkage and importance of sustainability reporting with ISP? So Ramprakash, can we cover this towards the end? Maybe Jason is slightly more suitable to pick this up. So I'd love for him to speak on this, because HLB HAMT does multiple ISP projects.
Sure.
And I'll pick up the rest questions in a bit. Yeah. Jason,
No,
can you
the
move to the next
ICV,
slide?
we can
Oh,
definitely
yeah.
field the
Sorry.
ICV questions towards the end of that. We actually had a segment dedicated for it as well. So definitely, Ramprakash, I'm happy to answer ICV at the end of this presentation.
Can you move to the next slide?
Yeah, it's an audience poll.
Perfect. Now, folks, given the multiple regulations that we just listed, which regulation or how many, it could be multiple, is your company preparing for today? We would love to hear your thoughts. Oh, perfect. Perfect. We have all the responses in. Um, about 68% of you say other GRI, CSRD, BRSR, ISSB. Then about 35% are looking at the decree law number 11. And next at 18% is ADX ESG disclosures, and the remaining at 12% are the others: Cabinet Resolution number 67, DFM, and CBUAE. Perfect. And good luck to those who are doing the CBUAE law. That's quite a beast. Perfect. Now, for us, when we start working with clients, right, we tend to have this ESG maturity framework in mind, because clients come to us with questions, right, like, hey, I'm maybe in the first year of my journey. What are certain steps I can take to become a leader eventually? Or "Hey, I've been doing sustainability for the last 2 years. What's next for me? Could you help me develop a roadmap?" Or sometimes clients come with a hardcore focus of, hey, leadership when it comes to sustainability is my key agenda, and what can I do, right? But so for us also, when we're working with clients and when we're preparing roadmaps for them, even sometimes the initial proposal developments for them, we try to think about where the organization is in terms of their ESG maturity. And to simplify it as much as we can, we tend to club them into these three buckets. The first bucket is organizations that are compliant. The key focus of these organizations is that they just focus on meeting regulatory or ADX or DFM exchange level requirements. And for them, the entire goal is to have a fully compliant ESG report ready by the end of the financial year. The next kind of companies are the competitor organizations. These organizations say that, hey, yes, while of course this ESG report is great, but we also want to work towards having a great governance framework. They also want to have strong principles and processes in place so that auditability of data becomes very important. Competitor organizations are ones that are engaging companies like HLB HAMT to also start preparing for their assurance processes. These are organizations that are also today looking at ESG ratings such as EcoVadis or DJSI, or doing their or trying to get a CDP score, so on and so forth. And then on the very end of this spectrum are the leader organizations. These are folks that are, and one example comes to mind is Emirates NBD, that are on the far end of the spectrum. These are the organizations that will create their first ISSB report, right? Going above and beyond what the law requires or what is expected out of them. And these are the folks that kind of all the other organizations that are in the competitor or the compliance stage look up to. And when we're doing these gap assessments, they're like, hey, could you please tell me what exactly this leader organization in my sector is doing so that I can have a roadmap in place to implement that? And these are organizations that are, I mean, today also even going beyond climate, looking at water parameters, looking at biodiversity, and also setting the stage for the other organizations to follow. On the next slide, we have what is our recommendation from a priority perspective for companies across each of these maturity levels. When we work with companies that are at a compliance stage, we just tell them that, hey, From a data perspective, let's just focus on compliance. Today, for most organizations, doing a scope 1, scope 2 will meet their compliance requirement. In case they have higher compliance requirements such as ADX, DFM, we kind of get that data in for them. We also ensure that these organizations have good ESG governance and ownership within the organization. Even if they do not have a sustainability team, which most of these companies don't, we try to have one anchor person who can drive this and take forward calls on implementation of projects, can move approvals for us quickly. We also highly recommend that these organizations conduct a structured materiality assessment or a double materiality assessment to get an understanding of what are certain key material topics that are relevant to their business environment. When you work with the competitor organizations, we work towards, of course, collecting data, managing that data across a lot more parameters, all the parameters that. And we also proof ready, so such that their auditors do not bother them a lot. We also try to have.
Yeah, Rishi, you're breaking up in between. Aditya, is it just for me
Top-down
or is it
approach.
for others as well?
Is it better now? I did get a message that my internet is unstable. Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
You are. The last 30 seconds was breaking up. If you would have to
Perfect.
repeat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Arun. Okay, awesome. I'll start over on what we do when we work with the competitor organizations. I hope that's where you missed me. What we do there is one thing is that we start by establishing better processes and better controls on the data collection process. What that means is that increase the coverage, increase the depth of the data collection. In addition to that, we ensure that any data point that the company is reporting and managing today, there is a backup document as proof so that auditability of data is maintained. In addition to that, we also try to have a top-down implementation or integration of ESG. What that means is that instead of ESG sitting in one small corner of the organization, we wanted to run across all departments of the organization, right? There is contribution from operations, from finance, from legal, from governance, right? We try to maintain and expand the integration of ESG, starting with the top management and then going downwards, so that ESG becomes linked to business outcomes as well. And of course, we also start looking at initiatives, right? That, okay, reporting data is one thing, but that's a very small part of the entire problem, right? You really have to work on initiatives on how you are on a year-on-year improving your metrics on each of those data. How are you reducing your emissions? How are you reducing your water consumption? How are you recycling your materials and your water, right? Even on the social parameters, we start looking at initiatives and creating those roadmaps and solutions for them. Some of these organizations also get onto the process of starting to work with their suppliers and engaging their suppliers on sustainability topics. And last but definitely not the least are the leaders. These are organizations that have already built assurance-ready data processing systems, right? They probably have already done an internal audit or assurance of their sustainability data and report, or have already done an external audit or assurance of their sustainability data. These are organizations that are also advanced on the scope 3 piece. And of course, there is data maturity there, not only from a spend-based perspective, but they're actually engaging their suppliers to get ground level data from suppliers on their emissions, their human rights data, their employee health and safety data, and certain other parameters. Right. And what another very interesting phenomenon that we see here is that these are organizations today that are also very seriously thinking about IFRS S1, S2, right? IFRS today requires some level of climate risk integration. So these organizations are either already working on it or at least creating a roadmap towards having the IFRS S1, S2 report ready. Perfect. Another quick poll. Would love to understand where do you think your company's current ESG maturity level is at? Perfect. Oh, wow. 63% of us are in the compliance stage. 23 are competitor at a competitor maturity level, and 13% are at a leader stage. That's amazing. Super excited to learn from all of you. Jason, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Harsh. Again, very, very interesting results from the audience poll. And we've got quite a few questions as well. Again, I would like to request everyone in the audience to give us until the end of this presentation. We are halfway through and we are still aligned with the time as well. So I will keep my part of the presentation brief because we understand that there's a lot of different people present. We've got a very big crowd with a lot of different backgrounds in ESG as well. Some are at a early stage of understanding what exactly ESG is. Some are in the leadership stage as well. So in terms of terminologies and nomenclature, I'm going to keep things simple. And please feel free to put all your questions on the chat. We've got Rasadul, Aditya, uh, and Honey helping us as well. So I think we'll address all of it. None of the questions will go unanswered. Everyone will be receiving this deck immediately after the uh, presentation or latest by tomorrow in our post presentation email. So, yeah, we'll get started defining a strong 2025 ESG report and what it means in the UAE context. So, if not UAE specifically, there are areas which overlap in the general GCC in the MENA region context as well. So, when we say a strong ESG report, it what comes to our mind is complexity. What comes to our mind is a hefty report with 100 plus pages. That is not exactly what a strong ESG report means. There are a couple of basic fundamental points that one has to make sure is covered in the report. It starts with clear governance and accountability. Credible data, again, managing the reliability of the data is an important part. It should be auditable. The processes itself should be documented and reviewed. All of these should be, again, under the banners of policies, under the sustainability part of an organization. The governance, the internal corporate governance, has to be extremely airtight. So now this is not ESG specific per se. Every organization needs a strong corporate governance. As a result of that, there are multiple facets of the sustainability bit which we'll have to look at. Again, clear governance and accountability, it is very simple. Every organization needs it. Well defined and prioritized ESG topics. So different organizations, during this webinar, from the service industry, there are some from manufacturing, there are some from the FMCG. We've got attendees from some of the African countries as well. So multiple organizations present here. What is the first step is to understand how ESG relates to your organization, what is relevant to you, and properly defining the material topic. So in the ESG context, it is there is a process called materiality assessment. It is usually a diagnostics done of your organization, which shows what which ESG topics are pertinent to your organization and what are the data points you need to be collecting on that. So again, defining them, prioritizing them in terms of your company's mission, vision statements, and then uh, collecting data towards that common goal. So that is number one, complete, traceable, and defensible data. Again, uh, to avoid greenwashing, there are multiple steps which one can take. Obviously, third-party assurance is one. Having an auditable trail or auditable log of data is important. But at the same time, there is a lot of push from the government as well. Uh, Arushi has spoken about the Federal Decree 11 law, which applies to all organizations, especially the ones in the heavy emission industries. This is the year of transition which has been provided by the government, which essentially means that all the organizations have to start collecting data, creating the report, following the MRV method, which is monitor, report, and verify. So again, monitoring is collecting your scope 1, scope 2 data. We have discussed what scope 1 and scope 2 are. They are relatively easy compared to scope 3. So the government is giving us a little bit of leeway that way. And report again, build a GHG inventory. GHG stands for greenhouse gas. So again, a greenhouse gas inventory based on your scope 1, scope 2 emissions. And finally, V, which is verify. So you need third party assurance on your emissions report. Now, this assurance could be done using any one of the three standards which has been mentioned by the government. So again, you have to be very clear as to what the government needs and how to go about doing this. So that is where again HLB HAMT and Oren, it's sort of a very symbiotic relationship where the monitoring and reporting part is handled by Oren, which is essentially analyzing data, collecting, calculating, and then presenting the report. The assurance of it again comes on to HLB HAMT, where we have a massive team of licensed auditors who can provide the assurance based on ISAE 3410 standard, which is one of the specified standards by MOCE, which is Ministry of Climate Change and Environment of UAE. So again, there you have it. Complete traceable, defensible data is absolutely important. You don't have to cover a lot of things. You have to cover limited and very specific things. But what you do cover, you have to have a very bulletproof sort of system in terms of data. Again, consistency across reports, filings, and public disclosures is basic when we're talking in the broader assurance point of view. Consistency is absolutely important. Standards which you are using shouldn't change, and in terms of the metrics which you are collecting shouldn't change. KPIs shouldn't vary from year to year. So again, consistency across all your reports builds that kind of reliability, general credibility on your organization as well. So what a ESG report does not require, again, highly complex climate scenario analysis. This is something which is more of pomp and frills. It's not something that non-financial institutions need currently. So the central bank obviously takes this very seriously. If you are one of the licensed financial institutions, you need to have your climate scenarios in place. Again, you've got your ICAP models, all of it, your stress testing requirements, all of it is there if you are a licensed financial institution. But it is not part of your ESG report. It all comes under your general risk architecture, again, under the appropriate brackets. But your ESG report doesn't require it. A detailed transition pathway unsupported by data maturity. Now, what does transition pathway mean? So essentially, if you have bogus targets without baselines, like you don't know what your current carbon footprint is, what your current energy usage is, but you have set a target for perhaps marketing purposes that you will reduce 20% of your carbon footprint by 2030. So there is no baseline assessment done. There is no proper controls in place to measure from your baseline to your target how to move. And then again, it is basically a commitment without an execution plan. So those are the kind of things we need to actively avoid. Those are things which are quite often seen. We have partnered with Oren and analyzed several reports, and unfortunately, a lot of them fall under the non-compliance category because of such, detailed transition pathways by without having any data maturity in place, without having proper plans and internal controls in place. So I think that is something you should definitely avoid. Again, ambitious promises is something which is easy to make. It is very important that you provide auditable data for all the commitments that your organization makes and have a more organic growth in the ESG space rather than go all in with some green, use the word green in a lot of marketing contexts and then sort of try to spin it off. So that is not the way. But yeah, a quick checklist again, this is to facilitate you guys to understand what are the things that you need, what are the absolute essentials. There are so many more aspects to it. There is the different avenues you can open up once you start breaking these down. But again, this is a very quick checklist for all of you. Under the policy section, you've got your human rights. Again, a lot of this overlaps with the UAE's vision of 2030, 2050 as well. So that is absolutely perfect. So it's not just ESG that you are adhering to. Uh, we are all operating here in UAE, most of us are at least. And when you are sort of growing, when your organization is expanding, it is important that you align it with the UAE's vision as well. So the human rights is an important bit. Anti-bribery, anti-corruption laws are easy to, sort of forget. A lot of companies say that we are not perhaps big enough to have this. It is just a policy. It has to be in the correct narrative. It has to be in place and it needs to be documented. Periodic reviews have to take place. So these are small things which do not require capital, which can be implemented. So it absolutely has to be done. Whistleblower ethics mechanism, all of this has to be in place. Now, you can't, circumventing it by saying that our operations is very limited. We are like 5 people and we have nothing to do with this. Maybe, but you need to have these mechanisms in place. It needs to be reflected on public domain, ideally. So it needs to be on your websites as well. In any kind of employee portals that you have, this has to be shared. So these kind of policies are easy to implement and form the foundational structure of your, ESG report. Yes, Arun, we have noticed your question. We will be answering it really quickly right after the presentation. Supplier code of conduct, again, we have it. Every organization has it. The procurement teams are very strict about it. Uh, Tweaking that to implement uh, sustainability generally without going deeper into the mechanics of ESG, without adopting the ideology of ESG, just have including a clause in sustainability in your supplier code of conduct is step one. A lot of organizations do that, but it doesn't really mean anything. You are not uh, categorizing your suppliers based on their sustainability measures. So, unfortunately or fortunately, in this part of the world, that is how it functions. It starts off with one clause, which doesn't mean anything, and then they take further steps. They start rating their suppliers based on their responses. They start grading their suppliers. So again, this is where the government has taken a very strong step and included supply chain sustainability at the very top level. There are multiple aspects to it. Listed organizations like ADNOC have gone public saying that all their vendors, each and every vendor, including MSMEs, which is micro SMEs, have to have a sustainability framework in place. That is one way of doing it. Second is ICV. They have given a sustainability bonus to organizations which are satisfying four layers of sustainability. It is a 2% bump in your score. Now, again, for a lot of companies, it 2% might not make a big difference, but at the same time, there are even more companies in UAE for whom that 2% makes a massive difference. It is a difference between winning and losing a project. uh, ICB has always been a very sensitive and delicate area. Uh, mm, you've been winning a lot of projects from the same government organization, but after the introduction of ICB, you're not able to crack into the top 10 suppliers list as well. So again, for them, sustainability becomes a game changer. And there are four layers to it, but you cannot really bargain or negotiate saying that, okay, I have two, so give me 1%. It is 0 or 2%. That's it. So you have to satisfy all four. You have to provide evidence for all four. And only in the subsequent year will you be able to present that and get that 2% bonus. So that is how the whole sustainability bonus comes into play with ICV. And HLB HAMT is one of the Moyat approved uh, ICV certification providers as well. So we have an ICV team based out of Abu Dhabi, which has been given the right by Moyat to assess the inputs from companies and issue certificates directly. So until January this year, we had to send the information to Moyat and then they would get back to us and then tell us whether or not to issue the certificate. But since then, we have been given direct authority to issue certificates. Again, to maintain proper governance, we still maintain the process of sending them the documents and then issuing the certificate. So, uh, using that sort of information and knowledge, we have been able to help companies really improve upon their sustainability practices with an additional benefit of improving their ICV score. So, yes, implementation, defined responsibilities, evidence of implementation across operations. This is so sorry. Do the next slide. Yeah. Uh, so a lot of operational changes occur from time to time, more often than not from a cost optimization point of view. So people update their fleets, update the kind of uh, manufacturing processes to basically consume less energy and make things faster. It is purely from a process slash cost optimization point of view. Now, from these things, there is obviously a sustainability angle to it. Understanding that, framing it in the right way, and then un- sort of building the implementation practices under the whole sustainability forum. So all those implementation has to happen. Uh, you need to actually point it out. There's no point in doing it without being able to point it out, and the responsibilities again. And without ownership, there is no proper assurance trail because that is one of the most important things whenever you're implementing sustainability because there's a stall period which comes. We've all been there in terms of operations. If you do not properly identify who is responsible, who is accountable, then things tend to stall. Training and awareness, again, employee training on key ESG policies, role-based training where relevant. So this is something HLB and Oren has been doing quite rigorously for the last 2 years. This has been a big part. We have supported the UAE 2030 vision as well, along with this. So there are actually three parts to it. There is Oren, who supports us with the data management bit, HLB HAMT, the advisory side. Then there is a third part called the HLB Academy. Now, the academy is again KHDA certified. So when there are training programs conducted through the academy, the every participant gets a Dubai government stamped certificate, which adds a lot of value to their general L&D and upskilling. So that way we have made quite a few strides, and it is more and more important to bridge that informational gap. People even today do not understand the importance of ESG. It is mistaken with CSR, and the question comes up, is it mandatory? Do I need to do it? If not, we'll talk about it later. So that is the kind of context which has to change. That can only be changed through educating and building awareness. So that is a big part of what the job is. Materiality assessment, again, we have discussed this before. Uh, Very simple. It is to understand what is specific to your organization and what are the metrics you need to collect data on. Data collection and consolidation. Once you have your material topics, all you have to do is collect data on that, recycle. Every 3 to 5 years, you might have to reassess the materiality. And again, it's all about uh, keep the cycle going. So final report, again, report finalization is getting board approval and making sure that you are compliant with GRI. All the reports that are generated through us, you have like the two layers of assurance, which is like you have the HLB HAMT managing the compliance side of the report and Oren managing the data authenticity of it. So that's very quick checklist. This will again be shared with all of you. So, you can have a look, maybe look at what you have. If there are gaps you can address yourself, please do. And if you feel like you need help, please feel free to reach out to us. Preparing for assurance is the next topic. And this is something which has progressed quite a bit. Earlier on, there was always in our careers, I think there was this question: is assurance mandatory and is it required? Is the report not enough? Now, the narrative has switched in the last 3 to 4 years. Now, the conversations begin, with consultants like us. It begins with, I need to make my report ready for assurance. So it has kind of switched from assurance being the add-on service to now assurance being the benchmark, because a third party assurance company will not give you a letter saying that your data is has been audited and is found to be authentic and validated through these standards if you are using any kind of greenwashing methods or just basic negligence. So you need to be able to reach that position and say, okay, your ESG report is absolutely ready for an assurance bit. So I think that whole conversation has flipped. Defining assurance, the number one thing is to identify which ESG metrics are most likely to be assured first. Again, being on the other side of the table, what we have noticed is organizations try to go for the entire bit altogether. So there you take on more than you can chew. So the problem happens is that there's just way too much data. There's HR data which is in play. There's HSE data which is in play. So you want to assure all of it, but you cannot provide background information to any of it. So that is what the problem happens. So what you should do ideally is to identify the key metrics which have to do with your carbon footprint, which is your emissions, which is your energy, workforce, health, and safety. Once you identify these key metrics, which is specific to your organization, you will have to provide assurance with just those. So you can provide your background evidence, you can provide the trail, all of it for just a specific set of metrics. Over time, in the subsequent years, your aim should be to increase those metrics and cover the entire organization. Establishing clear data ownership. Again, when an auditor enters the room, the question is not who has prepared this report. The question is who owns the data. They will not ask you about the quality of the report or the aesthetics of the report. It's all about who owns the data. They will specifically go to data owners and verify this. So it is absolutely important to establish and assign accountable individuals to own each KPI. So for energy, there should be someone from operations, there should be for the supply chain, but there should be someone from procurement. So again, assigning the proper data ownership. Document roles for data preparation. Again, all of this process has to be documented. There is no two ways about it. There's no negotiation and there's no broad statements that procurement department handles this. You'll have to be super specific. Strengthen documentation and evidence. Again, Maintaining bills, invoices, meter readings, and calculation workings link evidence clearly to reported figures. Now, again, this is something which everyone does from a more financial control point of view. All bills are maintained, all invoices are maintained, which inherently means that all the meter readings are maintained. So it is already in place. What you need to do is repurpose some of that, is to understand how do you bring it under the whole sustainability assurance bit. You will need to document maybe a little more, so understanding what exactly that little bit of gap is and addressing that so that you can start getting assurance on your sustainability metrics. Again, standardized methodologies. Like we've discussed before, inconsistencies in methodologies is the number one reason for not clearing assurance projects on your sustainability metrics. Because if today you decide to go ahead with GRI, but again, you hear of some other standard and it feels like it's more in the news nowadays. It is more, uh, for the lack of better word, hip. You decide to go for that methodology, but that causes a friction. The methodologies have to remain consistent, and over a period of time in this part of the world, it has become consistent. So it's all about following the right methodologies. Introducing internal review controls. Again, basic maker checker model, because this is where data gets distorted. If there is only one person who is responsible for inputting the data and there is nobody else who's reviewing it or who's approving it, then there is this whole dependency. That is when auditors might raise an issue that okay, this internal review control is absolutely absent. So this maker checker model is vital to sort of create this internal review process. Again, conduct internal dry runs. Test whether another team or internal auditor can independently replicate the data. This is something a lot of organizations in UAE have actively started doing, and documenting this process throughout the journey is also absolutely vital, because what this does is it reveals the gaps earlier on. And so when you finally do go for an external audit or for an assurance statement, you have that extra level of confidence. You don't have to scramble for data in the last minute, start sending panicky emails across the organization to your finance guy, to your procurement team. So, these kind of dry runs just make things smoother, and it absolutely needs to start happening right away. Yeah, on that note, we have an audience poll. Really quickly, again, in the interest of time, has your company undertaken third-party assurance for this year's sustainability report? If not sustainability report, if you have gone for a rating and the rating requires you to do a third-party assurance, you can click on that as well. Limited or reasonable, yeah. Okay. Okay. So the responses for this question is as expected. The other polls were quite surprising, but yeah, majority 40% have gone with they are not currently doing it, but they plan to do it next year. Now, again, it is kind of a little bit of irony that because everyone has to do it next year, there is no planning to do because the federal decree 11 hits everybody. So as soon as you go for the reporting methodology, you'll have to go for the assurance bit. So again, everyone should be prepared in advance with all of these checklist items that we had mentioned earlier. And yeah, I think we can move ahead. Data quality and key risk area. Again, this is something we have discussed already. Unclear data ownership leads to a lot of issues, incomplete or missing source documentation, inconsistent methodologies or units, multiple versions of the same data across teams. Now, lot of redundancies we notice in terms of data collection. HSE teams all over UAE collect massive amount of data in regards to employee health and safety, with regards to uh, the environmental. So under the environmental, they are collecting energy data, they're collecting water data, but there is no coherence to it. They do not really use a lot of the data. Massive Excel sheets populated for years on end. So you've got monthly breakdowns, but what lacks there is coherence. The data quality itself, you need to understand very specifically why you're collecting the data, to what end you're collecting. And I think that is something we have solved a lot recently. So data quality is one of the key risk areas. Principle, if data cannot be traced and explained, it cannot be relied upon. That is as simple as it goes. It has to be traced back to who owns it and the trail behind it. So it all sort of adds up together. Strengthening data validation. Again, minimum good practice is named owner for each key metric, documented data sources, year-on-year reasonableness check, independent internal review for critical metrics. Again, this is as just a gentle reminder to all. This is not best in class. This is a baseline practice. This is the minimum level at which all organizations should be operating at, irrespective of their sector, size, industrial implications. It shouldn't be loopholes and reasons to not practice this. This is something every organization should have. Again, a quick audience poll. This is the last one for our audience. What is the most challenging aspect of managing ESG data in your company? So you've got data collection from various departments, data validation, lack of standardized data formats, difficulty in tracking scope 3 emissions. In all fairness, scope 3 can get a little tricky sometimes, depending on your operations. So,
Tricky is
but
a
that is
kind
the
word.
yeah,
Yeah.
tricky, and again, just playing the devil's advocate, it is not as complicated as it once used to be.
Hmm.
There are a lot of solutions out there now. Data collection from various departments is 59%. Okay, again, another unexpected response, but yeah, very interesting. This is something nobody wants to do. Again, if you can't really keep one person separately just to coordinate all of this. So that doesn't make sense, and no one's willing to take on more than their day to day because there's just so much going on. But yeah, data collection also is cumbersome. Yeah, yes. Final review. Yeah, Arushi, you wanna take this?
Yeah, Jason, actually, in the interest of time, we just have 1 minute left. We'll
Okay.
send across this presentation to everyone, so maybe you can go through it then. But we actually want to, we had some interesting things that we want to give you for free. So Jason, could we go to item number one, the maturity tool? Perfect. So first things first, folks, here is our first free resource. We've developed an AI-powered ESG maturity assessment tool. It'll evaluate you can add responses to questions on environment, social, and governance, and see where your company stands today. So this is number one. When we send across the deck, you will have this again. And yes, Rasbil has also added a link to this tool on the chat. And here is another one. Like a just a free ESG consultation session with our ESG experts. A lot of you have a lot of questions. Rasul has also added the form in the chat. We'd love to chat with you. This will be a much longer conversation just dedicated to you. So any kind of question, right? You can go get as technical as possible, as basic as possible. This is your time, and we'll answer that question for you. That being said, we've missed out some questions. What we'll try to do is send across an email to you later. We have some lovely questions, and we'll write back to you over email. I've tried to answer most of the questions in the webinar chat as well. I hope I haven't missed a few, and then we don't end up sending you an email. But you will have one of our team members' email IDs, so you can respond to them, and within 24 hours, you should hear back from us. But yes, thank you so much, everyone. It's 5:01 p.m. We don't want to keep you for longer. And we had a lovely session. And thank you so much, Jason. I honestly learned a lot. And yes, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone as well.